Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Jeff Moss, founder and director of Blackhat.
Yay! Hey. I feel like David Letterman or something up here with all the bright lights. I know there's an audience out there, but I can hardly see you. So we're going to start with a wave on the right. We're going to move. No, just kidding. Okay, so before we start off, this is the 13th Blackhat. Can you imagine? It's like this is how big we've gotten in 13 years. And for it, we have the largest conference we've ever done, the most number of submissions we've ever done, and I'm wearing this crazy little head thing. And that's for a reason, because today our keynote will actually be taking some questions after she's done giving her speech. And so I want to be able to roam around, and we'll have people in the audience with microphones to take questions from you guys, and I'll be moderating in the middle. And so that explains this headphone. I'm not about to break out in a song and dance. I know. Okay, so being our 13th conference, I've got a couple of statistics here before I break out into some general remarks I want to make to you. We've got one person from Mongolia here. Mongolia is in the house. And yeah. And then we've got one person from Acadia, Algeria, and 2 people from the Cayman Islands, 2 from Iran, 1 from Ghana, and 19 from China, 22 from Brazil, 3 from Brunei, and then good old our allies here, United Kingdom with 95, but Canada beats them with 128, and Germany trailing behind at 44. It sounds like a World Cup score. And we have some future Blackhats I just want to get on your calendars. We have the next one that's coming up is our first ever Blackhat in Abu Dhabi, and that's in November, which they tell me November in the Middle East is a good time to be there, so I'll find out. My total experience is 2 days in and out of the country, which was gorgeous, and we're really excited to get to Abu Dhabi and try a new market and really see there seems to be a lot of energy there. So if you're interested in submitting, call for papers is open. We're looking for some really good submissions for Abu Dhabi, so we could get you out there and maybe even do a little desert safari action. Okay, so a couple of comments, just because things are sort of happening this year that calls for them again. I've got this rant, and I've tamed it, and it's the keynotes we try to select here are meant to sort of frame larger issues and expose you to sort of a bigger world, right? We're all heads down, we're dealing with technical specific problems, and every once in a while it's probably pretty good to get an idea of like, what's the bigger world we're all operating in? What's the larger context that we do this for? You know, is it for society or for your business or for individual advancement? And so we selected a keynote that would really help kind of try to expose you to a larger perspective. But also, I kind of want us to think here for a minute, now that we've been doing this for so long, like, what security problems have we like fundamentally solved? And I can't really think of any. I mean, yes, little point solutions and patch updates and things like that, but I still can't think of any real big things we killed. Like X25 security just kind of went away because we moved on to the internet, to TCP/IP, and I'm still thinking, can we send email securely today? I don't think so. Can we route packets securely? Can we resolve names securely? Can we browse the web securely? No. But we've got like 50,000 antivirus vendors and 20,000 widgets, and I'm trying to understand what are the incentives? Why can't we solve these larger problems that are so fundamental to the underpinnings of everything we do? And for our country and every country in the world, the internet is an engine for innovation and commerce, and yet we don't seem to want to put the energy forth, or we're incapable of putting the energy forth to secure the fundamental underpinnings. Except, happily today, in 1999 I gave a speech at CSI, and during that speech I was so excited because they ratified the DNSSEC RFC. And I was like, yay! It's the first time now we're putting a nail in the coffin of a problem that's been haunting us forever, since its inception pretty much, since the bad guys figured out how to cache poison. And now it's like 11 years later. And finally, ICANN today will be making an announcement that the root is officially signed, and hopefully we can now move on to the business of implementing DNSSEC instead of just talking about DNSSEC. You'll be seeing talks about RSnake, and some guys have some great research about all the reasons why SSL is pretty much fundamentally broken in the way that we use it to conduct secure commerce online. SSL needs to get fixed. Browsing needs to get fixed. And so I want you to think about, in whatever endeavor you're in, how could you possibly help fix the underlying foundations of the internet? And then we can build all this extra stuff on top, whether it's a new technology or whether it's getting involved in another in a project that's helping to work on a more secure email, or the research on the SBGP initiatives, or more likely in this group, we're going to be working on web app security and back-end database security, cloud security. So we don't just keep repeating the cycle. What's that motivational poster that says, failure, the only thing consistent in your failure is yourself. And we don't want to keep doing this. Let's get some low-hanging fruit. Let's pluck some low-hanging fruit. Let's solve a couple of these problems and move on. Instead of innovating, we innovate so quickly. I can't tell if security problem is a byproduct of innovation, or is it just because breaking things is easy and solving things is hard, and by nature we like to do the immediate gratification thing. So I just want you to think about that and tell me what you think. Am I crazy? Am I not crazy? But this is something I've been thinking about for years, and I want to finally talk about it in a larger audience and see what you have to say. Okay, with that, I'm going to introduce the introducer of our keynote, Jane Lute. And it's somebody a lot of you already know. He's been in the industry for a long time. He's a serial entrepreneur, started many businesses. Some of them you may have heard of: CC Mail, Verity, payment processing company. Philippe Courtois, who is also over 10 years ago started Qualys. And it's interesting because 10 years ago, what did Qualys do? They were a vulnerability assessment company in 1999. And they started supporting us shortly right after. So for almost 10 years, they've been supporting Blackhat and the community at large. And now, 2010, they've grown into a leader in IT security and compliance management, right? We've added on this management component to it. And now they've moved from being an app to software as a service. They push out a lot of this stuff through the cloud. And they're really trying to be an innovator of this security model. And so with that said, I want to introduce Philippe Courtois. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeff, and thank you for these insightful comments. Good morning. Blackhat, which, as Jeff reminded us, started about 13 years ago when I was young and beautiful like him, as I sincerely believe, has become the most important event in our industry. And this is very simply because it brings together the best mind and I would say the most dedicated researcher in security. I think today it's very clear that security needs a significant community effort. It cannot be anymore a few companies and a few key talented researchers to solve the problem. I think it requires obviously the collaboration on the global scale of the industry, governments. And I think it's also very important that they and we, if you prefer, leverage the talent of the community. And that's obviously easier said than done. We need to provide the tools also for the community to essentially be capable of collaborating together, and this is a commitment that Qualys has. And with that in mind, it's really a unique privilege for me to introduce our keynote. She brings a very unique experience, with her career in the military and at the United Nations. And she has now a very key role in our Department of Homeland Security. And it's a great honor to introduce the Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security, Jane Hall-Lute. Thank you.
I want every day at Homeland Security to begin with music. Thank you. Thank you very much for this extraordinary opportunity. The Secretary, Janet Napolitano, sends her regards to you all. It's a special opportunity for Homeland Security to be in your company. I especially want to thank Jeff Moss, who contributes his extraordinary talents not only to the work that you do every day, but to the work that we do every day in Homeland Security. I thought what I would talk about, because I am not of your community. 150 years ago, I was a young signal officer in the Army. Hua, I know you're out there. Yeah, thank you. I know you are out there. No, I've got so many mics. I feel like I have no mics. You know, it's you know, an experience like this really is something unusual. You know, I am going to march home and tell my children, you know, whenever you get that ridiculous question of, you know, people asking you, where do you want to be in 20 years? Tell them you don't know, but wherever it is, you hope you're not limited to what you can think of at this moment. Because I can tell you, 20 years ago, I would have never imagined myself standing here. What I thought I would talk about, though, this morning is the challenge that I think we face. We face it together. What can be done about that challenge, and importantly, who should do the work? I was struck 20 years ago as a young officer in the military when the Joint Staff came out with a document called Joint Vision 2010. This was around 1990 or so, and it was an expansive document about where the military wanted to be in 20 years. And I had a real problem with it. And everybody said to me, why do you have a problem with Joint Vision 2010? It's visionary, isn't this great? I said, well, you know, there's a JV 2010, but there's no NV 2010. There's no National Vision 2010. So we have a military that knows where it wants to be in 20 years, and we have a country that has not even asked itself that question. And it seemed to me we needed to catch up. And so when you think about where you want to be in 20 years, I suppose at the end of the day, you also need to think about how to get to the end of the day, and you need to think about where you are today. So where is the United States today? What does this country need at this moment in its history? I mean, everybody will have an opinion on that. I'll give you mine. This is a country that needs a safe and secure homeland. We're a country that needs a dynamic economic engine that can generate new wealth. We're a country that needs strong friends and neighbors. And we're a country that needs predictable relations with others. That's about the rule of law. If these are the needs that we have, what is the role of cyberspace, cybersecurity, in helping to secure U.S. interests? Well, secure them against what? What's a threat? I don't know, it seems pretty comprehensive to me. You can steal our data, you can steal our identities, you can steal our past life, and you can steal our future opportunities. You can't deter that threat, though, if you never talk about things, as one of your colleagues said this morning. You can't have a strategy of protection. You can't have a strategy of deterrence if we don't ever talk about the threat and how we can understand it. Indeed, how we can understand cyberspace at all. Now, cyberspace, your community and Homeland Security, my new community, has a lot in common. You have a lot of brand name recognition. Everybody's heard the term cyberspace. Everybody's heard the term Homeland Security. Not everybody knows what those two terms mean. Cyberspace. Is it a war zone? Is it a marketplace? Is it a neighborhood? Is it a school? A highway? A do loop of lives gone by? A playground? A sandbox? A war zone? How does cyberspace and war zones compare? War zones. Wars happen somewhere. They involve somebody. Geography is key. seizing and holding terrain. Wars happen somewhere. Cyberspace is sort of about this space-time thing. Nobody really gets it. Wars end lives. Cyberspace merely destroys them. War zones are all characterized by a degree, to some extent or another, of lawlessness. No order, contested order, alternative order, and we're fighting about it. Cyberspace seems to be normless. There's a difference. You know, there are a lot of mythologies about war. We say that if people are poor, poverty contributes to violent conflict. Wealth does too. Rich people will kill each other, as well as poor people. We say that ethnicity contributes to violent conflict. Calling a conflict ethnic doesn't tell you anything about why it's violent. It doesn't tell you anything about why people are killing each other over their ethnic differences. We need to know more about why that is so. And fundamentally, the greatest mythology about war, I suppose, is that it's inevitable. Well, war is not the weather. We shouldn't act like it is. So how many analogies for war are there in cyberspace? How should we think about cyberspace? And what can be done about the challenges that we face every day? As Jeff said, we can't access the internet, we can't transit, we can't shop, we can't browse, we can't communicate in a secure way. That sounds pretty fundamental to me. What can we do about it? Again, in Homeland Security, we had these challenges of building on the work of the first 7 years in the creation of the department to try and define what it means to talk about a secure homeland. What does it mean? Again, we had a lot of brand name recognition, but not many people knew exactly what it meant when you said Homeland Security. So through a series of meetings, outreaches, processes, and yes, conversations, we laid out a vision for Homeland Security. Because as somebody once told me, if you don't know where you're going, you're not likely to get there. So what are we trying to do in Homeland Security? What we're trying to do is create a safe, secure, resilient place where the American way of life can thrive. That's the vision. And these questions are very fundamental. How do we do it? What does it mean to be safe? What does it mean to be secure? We want the American way of life to thrive. How are we going to do this? In the department, we laid out 5 essential missions for ourselves. Some will be familiar, some are new. The 5 essential missions are fundamentally the first one, which would be well known to you, which is to prevent another terrorist attack. Prevent terrorism from again afflicting this country. The second mission is to secure our borders. And here you can begin to see the duality of the Homeland Security challenge. Because we don't only want to keep out people and goods that might be dangerous, we want to expedite legitimate trade and travel. Because fundamentally, the strength of this country rests on our ability to interact with the rest of the world and to do so in safety and security. So our first mission is preventing terrorism. Our second mission is securing our borders. The third mission is to enforce our immigration laws. The fourth mission that we laid out is the cyber mission, ensuring the safety and security of cyberspace. And a lot of people were surprised by that. Maybe not this community, but a lot of people were surprised that we thought it was essential to the security and safety and resilience of the American homeland that we have a safe, secure, and resilient cyberspace as well. And the fifth mission that we laid out for ourselves in Homeland Security is to help build a resilient society, a resilient public, able to face all threats and hazards that come our way. How are we going to do this? It's not enough simply to lay out a vision. Where do you want to be in 20 years? You need a way to get there. These 5 missions are our way. Within each of them, we've identified goals that say, if we do this, that means we are effective at discharging these key missions. Resilience. What does it take to have a resilient society? It takes empowered individuals, capable communities, and yes, a responsive federal system. It's not impossible to achieve. And we do this based on the simple principles of security, resilience, and exchange with the rest of the world. It's not about building borders that are impenetrable. It's about interchange with the rest of the world. But doing all of these things for Homeland Security will really require that we think differently about ourselves and about our tools. Cyber is called out as a separate mission for Homeland Security. But in order for us to create a safe and secure cyber environment, we have to define cyber's strategic space. And here I see two very important shaping trends that are conditioning our understanding and access to the strategic space within which cyber operates. And the first trend is this trend of technology. Perhaps not what you might expect, but the anthropologists tell us technology is putting tools within our grasp. And the current trend is that technology is exceeding our grasp. It is way far out in front of society's ability to understand, adapt, and adjust, some people say. I don't know if that's true, but we certainly feel as a society that we are lagging behind the frontiers of technology that you deal with every day. How long can we stand that? And what may be lagging even further behind, where our social sensibilities have located us at this moment, are our laws. Now, we know that laws are always a lagging indicator. They're a rested judgment that society comes to when it confronts its problems. That's what the law reflects. It anticipates the familiar. But so much that's happening in technology is unfamiliar to so many of us. How long can we stand that? The second trend that I see is that there is a normative convergence emerging in the world. I've spent most of my life in the international field, foreign policy, international relations, war, conflict resolution, war termination. How do you rebuild a society after war has destroyed it? And I see very clearly a normative convergence emerging, not only within our own society, but around the world. And that normative convergence is centering around three things: expectations of transparency, expectations of inclusivity, and expectations of reciprocity. What are we going to do about those emergent norms? How can we adapt our uses of technology, which seem to be exceeding our grasp, when the whole definition of technology to begin with was defined as tools within your grasp? How do we craft a strategy that permits the fullest exploitation of technology while ensuring our safety? How have we historically ensured our safety? By location. Location was the dominant security strategy. No longer. You know, it's interesting. The state system was formed in 1648 so sovereigns could protect their citizens from marauding outsiders. And I've been many places around the world where citizens need the protection of outsiders from marauding sovereigns. Location is no longer your ticket to safety. In cyberspace, location may be irrelevant. In cyberspace, power has no beginning and no obvious end. It's hard to feel secure in what you know. It's hard to feel secure in where you are. It's hard to feel secure in who you are. So what is the purpose of cybersecurity? Create a safe, secure, resilient place where we can thrive. Secure our information and secure our identity. And promote the kind of awareness, innovation, and shared understanding that make us all better off. If we're going to achieve this, I think we have to depart from the romantic notion of cyberspace as the wild, wild west, or the scary notion of cyberspace as a combat zone. Yes, there is a new reality of security, of conflicts, and of relationships. In fact, there is a contest right now for the corner on the market in the three key areas that used to define the role of governments: the control of lethality, the control of capital, and the control of rulemaking. And that power is going somewhere. It's going into private hands. And these changes have been fueled by the expansion of the domain of cyberspace. So what is the core question? What will we do with this power in cyberspace? How will it be governed? What will the rules be? Will there be rules? There will be rules. There will be rules. Can we still hope to rely on trust in each other? Trust in our actions, in our intentions, in our effects? Cyberspace is being built on an insecure platform to begin with. And from a governance and, yes, a legal perspective, we're playing catch-up. The goal here is not control, it's confidence. We want to expedite the good while preventing, excluding, impeding the bad. It's not like the wild, wild west. It's not a jungle out there. There are no perfect metaphors. Some people speak about cyberspace as a global commons. I don't know. Cyberspace seems more to me like light rather than air. It's available to all of us. There are no perfect metaphors. There are no good historical analogies. We may live, as some say, in ahistorical times. I don't know. But some say we need to build now the ecosystem for the healthy enjoyment, the healthy use by all of us. Do we need a culture of preparedness in this environment? Do we need a culture of resilience? Do we need a culture of prevention? I've spent a lot of my life thinking and writing and being around conflict and war. And in 1994, I had the extraordinary privilege of associating with Dr. David Hamburg from Carnegie Corporation of New York at the time, and Cyrus Vance, former U.S. Secretary of State, and a group of individuals who were determined that we could do more to prevent the outbreak of mass violence, the spread, the renewal of mass violence once peace has been achieved. And we were going to do this by thinking about how we could create a preferred environment rather than just avoid bad alternatives. So if you want to prevent people from killing each other, we need to create capable societies. Societies that have representative governance, market economic activity, robust civil society based on the rule of law. If you want to prevent the spread of conflict, you need to create fire breaks. And if you want to prevent the renewal of violence once a peace has been achieved, you need to create space. Physical and political space, so that peaceful efforts can succeed. The culture of prevention is one that builds on an affirmative vision of the future, creating a better place. We in the Department of Homeland Security want to stimulate a responsible debate about cyberspace. We want to participate in that debate. We want to debate on the rules of the road, about governance. How do we get it right? What is government's role here? What needs doing? In Homeland Security, we've been very busy in cybersecurity. We've identified the cyber mission as essential to building a safe, secure, resilient place where the American way of life can thrive. We've instituted a national cyber challenge because we believe education is important, it's essential. And all the good ideas out there have not even been thought of yet. We're developing a national cyber incident response plan that we'll test in the fall. We're deploying Einstein 2 throughout the .gov space, standing up NKIC, advancing a trusted identity strategy in cyberspace. We can find a way to secure ourselves. This country can be safe. We can protect our privacy and our rights. We can let open markets flourish. But we certainly in the department don't believe we have all the answers. It's always a drag when you meet somebody who already knows everything he's ever heard. That's not us. What will guide us? Will our expertise guide us? Will our experience guide us? Do we know the difference between our experience and our expertise? By the way, expertise is knowing the conditions under which your experience is relevant. Can we tell the difference? Do we have the courage to challenge the assumptions and explode the myths? I've talked about a few of the myths that I've experienced in my life about war. Billions of dollars have been spent in cyberspace, and as Jeff mentioned, yet none of the most fundamental problems of our experience in cyberspace have been fixed. You can't access, you can't surf, you can't transit, you can't shop, you can't talk securely. Fundamental problems. The administration is seeking to build a strategy to help ensure the cybersecurity of this nation. It's enormously exciting to get a challenge on this scale. It doesn't happen all the time in your life. It's exciting to be working with people who are at the cutting edge of their field and who recognize that we all have a role to play. And this is where you all come in. Help us not to be destined to tackle these largest questions with the most narrow approaches. Just as our Constitution diffuses power in order to concentrate this nation's strength. It will take the efforts of all of us to ensure the security of each of us. Now, I'm often asked, you've spent your whole career in national security and now you're in homeland security. What's the difference? There are a lot of differences. National security is about all of us. Homeland security is about each of us. National security is strategic, centralized, top-driven. Homeland security is operational, decentralized, bottom-driven, driven from the grassroots, driven from the experience of individual human beings. Problems in national security scale on the wholesale end. They involve us all. Homeland security challenges and problems scale on the retail end. Each of us is affected. These two, of course, connect. But we need strategies to deal with problems in the homeland, and we need help. I'm told that your community has very good taste when it comes to ideas. I've tried to offer a few. I'm told that you're driven. I wonder, among you, can you tell the differences between the drivers and the driven? In my world, it's important to make that distinction. Pollsters tell us that today, the country is about evenly divided about a lot of things. So many things. 48% this, 52% that. This is a climate that permits many ideas, but it's also a climate that compels few. So we might as well have the satisfaction of thinking the hard thoughts and of doing what is right. My parents, perhaps yours, come from the greatest generation. I think you are the ablest generation. Educated, healthy, smart, well off, highly mobile and connected, and deeply concerned about your fellow man. We live in an age when we know before victims do that they'll be victims. We live in an age when we know before victims do that they will be victims. What will we do about what we know? Well, 100 years ago, what did the people do about what they knew? In 1910, Churchill was 36 years old. Franklin Roosevelt was 28. Gandhi was 41. Mao Zedong was 17, and J. Robert Oppenheimer was 6. What do you do about what you know? How much time do we have to make a difference? Ours is a very special democracy. It's born of a very deep belief in the core principles of shared humanity and an obligation to value human worth. Ours is a democracy that has been enriched by the cultures of all the world and fueled by the ideas of the courageous, built by the energy of the youth. This is our present at the creation moment. If you talk to people who do research on the brain, they will tell you this is their renaissance. Let's make it ours. What is the vision that you see? What is the vision that you see? I know what I want to see. But as I think Ernest Hemingway said, when you know what you want to say next, it's time to stop. Thank you very much.
Absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. That was absolutely fantastic, and just the kind of vision that I hope will be seen out of DHS and other government entities, because we need to have this conversation, and it's very refreshing to see it acknowledged on a grand scale. So we have a couple of kind of softball questions to get things going, and then we're going to go right to the audience. So I want to cut a couple of these out that Jane dealt with already, and kind of get maybe a little policy here. With the relatively recent creation of the U.S. Cyber Command, where do you see the responsibilities of security being divided? And this probably goes to the Homeland Security versus National Security division you were talking about. And what are the overlapping responsibilities that need to be addressed?
So in Homeland Security, I mean, I come out of a defense background. Homeland Security has been given responsibility for securing the .gov domain and working very closely with the private sector on securing .com. We intend to do that. The vision for Homeland Security, as I mentioned, is to ensure a safe, secure, resilient place where the American way of life can thrive. The Department of Defense has the responsibility for Homeland Defense. We work very closely, but we see clear differences.
Okay, and then how do you see the states in this picture?
You know, it's one of the extraordinary things about Homeland Security, especially for the Department of Homeland Security. You need a Homeland sensibility. And we talk about, in the context of Homeland Security, about the enterprise. We don't think that government can do all that needs doing. We don't think the department can do all that needs doing. We think there is important and vital state, local, municipal, tribal inputs that need to contribute to the security of all of us. So they have a key role.
And then you were talking about sort of laws as a trailing indicator. And so right now we're operating in an environment where there is a mismatch between current legislation and sort of facts on the ground as it is. At what point do you see them starting to converge? We're starting to see laws proposed in the House and the Senate, and everybody's got a cybersecurity bill or something. But you know, laws that are rushed are not necessarily the most well-informed laws. So do you see this as like a 5-year, 10-year transitionary period, or how do you see this playing out?
You know, the tradition of law in our country is an extraordinary thing. And the best legal minds will tell you that law anticipates the familiar. You know, we've been here before, maybe not exactly in this way and with these actors, but we've encountered these circumstances before as a society. Making laws is one of the most stabilizing attributes of our society as well. It's a transparent process. Yeah. People know how it's made. Will it take time? Of course it will take time.
Yeah. Yeah, the predictability and the ability to anticipate and businesses to make decisions is very key. In a chaotic environment, how can you plan?
Right. And there are contracting aspects of the law. There are property aspects of the law as well. And so we need to know what we mean when we say, I own this.
Yeah.
This is mine. What do boundaries mean in this context? We need to have this conversation.
And in the cyberspace where the ideas, the intellectual property are virtual, they're synthetic, the concepts of intellectual property, say in the United States and the Western world, compared to other cultures, they don't share that kind of belief in the value of intellectual property potentially. I guess that's where the international governing bodies have to be. If you're going to go normative, there needs to be a common dialogue or a common set of expectations. And so how much does DHS drive that or inform our international debate?
Well, as I mentioned, you know, the United States exists as a leader in a dynamic world where relationships are forming every day. Our ideas, our commerce, our interchange. We are still, in many ways, the most attractive place on the planet to come.
Right.
And so this puts a different meaning to our borders. And it puts a different burden on our ideas and on the way we share them around the world. Our laws will only be one reflection of how we resolve those questions.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We're going to go to some questions in the audience.
Thanks.
So if we can bring up the lights. Hold on. If we can bring up the house lights so I can actually see people. And then we'll... Wait, who was that? Okay, you've got one over there? Okay. Oh, is that Marcus?
Yes, it is. Hi. We seem to have a really good ability to be galvanized into action after catastrophe. Pearl Harbor, 9/11. And after that, we move very quickly to try to accomplish things. Do you think that we are going to be able to do what we need to do without a cyber catastrophe? Or in Homeland Security, at the water cooler, do your peers say, it's just a matter of time before something horrible happens and that's what we're going to need to do what we actually need to do instead of just talking about what needs to be done?
You know, I'm a person who believes that this country can protect itself. I'm a person who believes in the extraordinary talent, ideas, expertise, energy, and commitment of the American people. Some people talk about that. Some people think it's inevitable that we will face the unthinkable. I don't know. I have a small child. I don't know what's inevitable. And I think if anybody who lived through the events of 1989, if you had lived through the events of 2001, you've lost the right to say anything's impossible. So what will we make possible? What will we do with what we know in order to deal with what we don't know?
Is there another question? Okay, we'll do one more over here, and then we'll jump to the other side of the room.
It was a very interesting keynote, but I'm slightly concerned in that the amount of specifics that we've got coming down the line don't seem to be that concrete. There's a lot of good talk about how we should secure things, how we should get along things, but at the same time, the actual driving force behind there doesn't seem that strong. How can that be pushed forward?
You know, and I've spent, I learned a new phrase while I was here, you know, a serial entrepreneur. I'm a serial public servant. And in the public sector, what you learn is there isn't a lot of should. There's a lot of did or did not. What did you do? What did you fail to do? And how can you make up the difference? I don't think there is any question that the administration is committed to elevating cyberspace, the challenges of cybersecurity to everyone's awareness and consciousness. Education is key here. How do we do it? We've launched cyber challenges in order to promote more learning, more sharing, new information coming in to solve practical problems. It's only a piece of the puzzle. It's only the beginning of the effort. But we are committed to doing whatever we can to harness the energy, ideas, and commitment of this group into the public sector, into public service, for the purposes of cybersecurity. I mentioned what we're doing on Einstein 2. We have colleagues here that can talk to you about the other programs, standing up national cyber incident response capability, standing up an incident center to be able to respond immediately. These may be gestures in your mind. We view them as important steps down the path of creating this secure cyber environment.
Okay, we'll take another question from this side of the room, and then we'll... Oh, you've got one over there? Okay, go ahead.
When you're speaking about Homeland Security priorities, you had immigration above cybersecurity. Considering the stagnation of the immigration issue in this country and the priority and how large the impact is with cyber, can you share with the rationale behind that prioritization?
It's not a list of prioritizations. They're all essential and key.
The five components of the whole.
Right.
Okay, that was a quick question. Let's try another one. I believe there's a gentleman over here.
Given the Department of Homeland Security's creation of TSA, which has been mocked by not only the United States security profession, but the whole world, why should we believe that DHS is going forward is going to protect cyber in something other than the same way that now, as TSA slows down air travel, DHS will now, in the cyberspace realm, slow down both commerce and the exchange of knowledge?
Well, it won't surprise you to learn that I differ from with your characterization of TSA. You know, there is a tension and duality in Homeland Security, as I mentioned on the border mission. We want to keep out people and goods that might be dangerous, but we need to expedite legitimate trade and travel. That's essential for the security of this country. It's a challenge that exists here. We happen to believe that we can achieve our security, we can protect our rights, we can promote commerce and lawful interchange. We can have all of these things, but we need to engage in a debate about how we will prioritize and how we will strike a balance. And the department is determined to be a portal for that debate. You know, societies used to have a conversation with themselves through their governments. In many respects, we're not talking to each other anymore. In many respects, we're throwing assertions back and forth at each other and seeing who has the more clever retort or who has thought of the newer idea. We need to evolve these ideas. We need to extrude them through our own experience to understand what it is we will do about the problems that we face. And that's our determination, whether it's border security, whether it's cybersecurity as well.
Let us all give Jane Lute a warm round of applause.